Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Nature Folklore Sessions. It's 13th of March, 2022. Well, thank you all for joining me on this weekly time of exploring nature-centered folklore and connecting this within your favorite sanctuary space and expressing any inspired visions from your sanctuary, especially tree sanctuary, as we'll be talking about that today. But be inspired with your visions expressed through your poetry, writing, arts, craft, performance, and even problem solving. Now today, it's part 3 of our tree season series, and it's Us and Trees, What Can We Do? Part 2. And this is getting to the end of the tree planting session, but it's the time when most trees seem to get planted, especially, well, here in the Northern Hemisphere. So what we got is a pretty big show because we're going to have tree planters, tree projects, we've got poets. So we're really getting into the heart of this subject right now. Now, the guest we've got today, we've got a lovely regular poet, Sinead McClure. She's on shortly. And we've got Grace Wells, who's already in the background here. And there we go. Anyway, there's a picture of her there. She's going to share some poems and tell us a bit about hometree.ie, which would be fabulous. And he phoned me a bit earlier. He's going to be on. We've got Ian Connaughton of the Gaelic Woodland Project, and that's fascinating as well. And Jerry Donlan, Bards Aloud, we haven't had him for a while, so he'll be along. And got a picture. There's Ian there, who's telling everybody about the Gaelic Woodland Project as well. And as I say, that's the symbol there. And here's Jerry. We've been on before. He's going to be starting up his poetry walks up in East Anglia. That starts up next Sunday. So today he'll have a couple of poems for us to share, and it'll be on live as well, which is fabulous. And we may, sort of touch and go, we'll see what happens. Sarah Humble might actually be stopping by and be live in the studio, so I'll have to shift over, bring a seat. I hope that happens. She's on the way here, so I hope she is on time. But if not, I'll do a pre-recorded interview with her, because it'd be lovely to have something from her in 2 weeks' time when I do trees and water mythology, trees and water folklore. Anyway, as usual, as I tell you, the nature folklore sessions here, the videos and the tree sanctuary support, they're brought to you due to our subscribers, which I humbly appreciate and thank you, Patreon subscribers and our PayPal donators as well. And most of them, some of them are with us live each Sunday, or they watch later on anyway. So thank you very much, all of you, once again. And with your continued support, I wouldn't be able to fund being here, sharing this show with you. So it's a huge thank you, as usual. So it's up to me to find out who the early birds are. It'd be lovely to see who's with us. It looks like there's one or two here. We got the lovely, beautiful people, Anne Baldings here from Philadelphia here, which is fabulous. And Sherry's here, Sherry Murphy. Good day, everyone, from northern coastal Maine. It snowed there last night. Terry Slack Hardwick's on the ball here. Maryland, USA. And time changes confuse me. So you've got a time change at the moment. Okay, interesting, Terry, thanks. And over from, I forget, is it the Wirral or somewhere, certainly over in England there, Cliff Carr. Looking forward to the show, but I'll have to watch and catch up later. I'm just glad you've popped in. That's fabulous. And Donna's here from New Mexico. Good morning. And Penny Stevenson over from Lincolnshire, not Mexico. That's the other one. There we go. Penny Stevenson, who is looking forward to this. So this is great. We got a lovely wee crowd here to start us off. Excuse me for a little drink. Now, today I'm going to continue from the last week of Us and Trees, What Can We Do? And hopefully all the gear will start working. I assume you're hearing me this time. The microphone hasn't decided. By the looks of it, it's got lights going, so your microphone's working. So I hope you're seeing and hearing me. And luckily, the tech hasn't been like it was last week. So great. But hopefully today there's something shared that may promote more of a personal connection with our trees, our woodlands and forests. We're certainly going to be a bit more passionate, I think, with what we're going to be sharing today. And this starts with having more awareness of the declining forestry, well, here in Ireland especially, but it's worldwide. The native woodlands around Ireland and the hedges too. There has been more awareness. I talk about when we did Bars in the Woods in 2012. We didn't seem to get any Irish people in. It was all the Eastern Europeans that were in who had a huge passion. But now in Ireland, it's amazing since then how many projects, and we're going to be talking about a couple of those with guests today, that is in this started up very much in progress around Ireland. It's absolutely wonderful to see. So that's what we're going to be talking about. But we're also, not only these big projects, we're going to consider small things that you can do about this, because even if you go wee garden, you can still have a tree sanctuary. And it's been a joy, as I say, to see more people in Ireland turn land from agriculture into growing many more mixed species of trees, and there's a bunch of tree planters doing that very thing here. And the one thing is amazing, I was looking through some photographs here, and I'm amazed how many tree planters still wear a collar and tie when they're out tree planting. But anyway, they're doing it, so there you go. But really, I believe we can be the acorns that become the future oaks. And there are several young pupils attending forest schools, and they're actually called little acorns. There's another tree planting picture I should have. Look at that. I'm talking about collar and ties. There's a very good example there. And there's a man holding up whips there to show you how it's done. But here's, as I say, little acorn forest schools. There's several of those around. I've got a son who works with those as well. So it's wonderful. We talked more about that last week. But one of the actions of forest schools does include being hands-on with the planting of trees, which is fabulous. And of course, this is intimate. If you were doing like those forest planters, you wouldn't be planting trees like that. But this is the difference, I suppose, between connection and perhaps the vibration of what you're doing. And maybe this will be we'll discuss with the guests that we've got, the difference of that personal plantation and planting trees very humbly and carefully like this, that when you've actually got a large project, you can't quite do it like that, not very easily anyway. So that's what we were talking about: education, caring for existing trees too, and also the biodiversity around them. Now, tree connections were once guided on this island of Ireland by human foundations of the Brehon laws of Ireland. I won't be covering much of that. One day we'll get a guest to talk about this. But the Brehon laws, they were once the community ways of living in fairness and balance. And those laws were inspired by folklore and connection to trees and woodland. But sadly, I feel that's since been clouded by our divisive systems and culture of courts, judgments, and after that comes blame and punishments. But there again, despite our wishful thinking about these old Brehon laws being of the idyllic balance of unity and fairness, the Brehon laws actually were not the rights for all people on this island that's now Ireland. Unfortunately, there was a double class, even 3,000 years ago, and maybe earlier. And so there was one class which we may describe as free people, and they were really the elite, and along with their associates. And then there was another class, which is unfortunately a load of people that were property. And we may call them slaves today, but it was the mundane workforce back then. I've talked about it on other Nature Folklore, the whole bonding system, but I won't cover that today. But this is sort of another class of people, and sadly, they had little or no rights of the councils of the Brehon law. There's some lads in council there. And look at that. And this was quite common. There didn't seem to be any women in these councils, although I do have an artist's impression of a woman in mediation here, if I can pull that up. It seems to be struggling. Here we go. There's a woman's an illustration of a woman in mediation in a Brown Law council. But today I feel that psychically, many of us have now become like tree people that don't have a forest. And that's not just Ireland. I think that's a lot of people around the country. And by not being of a forest, we're stripped of the divine guidance that the woodlands can serve us, that we can share. So today, some of the things that I and our guests hopefully will talk about will be a lead in to next week, when I will be sharing more ideas for your own personal tree sanctuaries. This is within the tree labyrinth. There we go, I vanished. And that is like what we have here. That's just from the tree labyrinth I got here when it's in leaf. And I believe that it's from a small place, your own tree sanctuary, that we can actually return with trees and the spirits within them. Here's someone that's doing that in the tree labyrinth here. And that connection that you can have being among them. Next week, I'll explain that a lot closer, because there's quite a mindfulness to that. And I think, excuse me, I think most of us can trust such surroundings and not be overwhelmed, anxious, and stressed. That's the main thing. We sort of leave our linear lives and get into something that's more spiral. And nature, as I often say here, I tend to find runs in cycles and spirals. There is not beginning or end. It's not like when we scribe things, it's not linear. That's not the way nature works. So all of this within a simple tree sanctuary, I feel we can feel more balanced, colorful, and we can feel a kind of enhancement within ourselves. There's like a forgiving lifestyle. We make this connection and suddenly all that revenge and anger and stuff like that, suddenly we're forgiving. Again, I'll talk more about that next week. But it's something we really deserve, especially at this time. But to get back into the groove of being hands-on with tree planting, the tree planting season, well, it's traditionally from summer to Imbolc, like from early November to early February for us here in the Northern Hemisphere. And that's known as the dormant season during the tree cycle, the annual tree cycle. But of course, us humans, we're last minute, we're doing things. And the bulk of the seasonal tree planting actually gets done late February and through this month. And of course, Tree Week in Ireland is right at the end of all this. There we go. It starts late March and it starts next Sunday here in Ireland. And that's very much in the tree spirit. Oh dear, next picture is a bit of a mess. It won't take the whole screen. I forgot to do this. But anyway, bare root planting is what goes on during this dormant season. And this means buying and planting trees without being supplied the soil. And they're not in pots. We don't buy them in pots. And it's a lot cheaper to buy them as bare root plants and more portable as well. A lot less cumbersome. Commercial tree planting is done with what's known as whips, and we'll bring that man up again who's holding the whips. There he is. There you go. That's a bunch of whips he's about to plant there. Anyway, I'm going to take a break now to bring on our first guest. And, we got everybody on. Grace Wells. Oh, she's got some pictures. Oh, goodness. She's adding stuff here. Goodness, we got Owen's here. We're all in, and Grace has surprised me by in the background bringing up some stuff here, which is wonderful. So we'll talk about that. Anyway, the first guest is a very active poet and stunning supporter of other poets as well. She's a member of various poet groups such as the Lime Square Poets. She's worked on various OT projects, sometimes with her husband, and she's now working on her first poetry book that's helped along by a deserved grant from the Irish Arts Council. So here we've got Sinead McClure. She's not on live with us. She sent me a beautiful pre-recorded video, and she talks about trees and where she lives. She's got a lovely wee tree sanctuary, only lives about 4 kilometers from me, 2 or 3 miles. And she's got a poem. It's a poem about swallows in the trees. It's absolutely beautiful. So anyway, without further ado, and I think I got it lined up, here's Sinead McClure, and she'll tell you all about it. So roll on, here's Sinead.
Hi there, thanks for joining me. Thanks, John, for asking me back to talk about trees, a subject I love to talk about. You joined me on a very, very cold day. It's been, we've had strange weather this year. It's been wet a lot of the time, but for the last few weeks when I want to really start planting and getting a few trees in, the ground's been very hard, very frosty, and today is no exception. I have a very special tree to plant. I was hoping to do it on camera, but we had heavy frosts overnight and the ground is very, very, very icy. Now, there's just in the tree behind me is a robin. We often get joined by the robins. Not sure if I can show her to you. Let me see. That I have. You may, there she is. You can see her, and the top of my fluffy hat. Yeah, trees. Last year I made a pledge on the 19th of March 2021 to plant a tree a week. Obviously you can't put a tree in the ground every week because they're out of season, you can't plant them, but I did plant 214 trees, so I exceeded that fourfold. However, some of they were bare root, some bare root oaks. I was late trying to get them in. It's hard work trying to do it on your own, and the ground had frosted over with a very, again, hard frost early May, and a lot of those trees didn't make it. But having said that, we're beginning to see the other trees, and some of them are oak, mostly birch, pop up now, and they're looking great, and they'll soon go into leaf, particularly the birch. They go into leaf fairly quickly. The oak will be the last. So I've walked over here a little bit. You'll see trees. I'm standing in a kind of a tree area. This is the orchard. We have some cherry, which is just beginning to bud. I don't know if you can see that there. The light might be catching it. You can see tiny little, like little pearls. And then behind me we have an old apple tree. I say old. These apple trees are about 18 years here. We don't get a huge crop from them. We have tried waysailing them in January, where you give them a sup of cider, hope that they'll give you something back in the autumn. We're still hoping for a good crop. So I decided to bring a poem down with me to read, and it contains a tree. A lot of trees find their way into poems for me, and this one, I was lucky enough, came first in a competition called Flee to Spring, which was from a publisher called Wingless Dreamer, and they published this beautiful anthology, and my poem is featured there, so I can actually look it up, read it for you. And it's because the tree that comes up in this poem isn't one that's native to Ireland, but to Africa. And the poem is about the passage of time, as a lot of my poems are, but it's also about a bird that we hope to see very soon in our skies, if not in the next few days. This is called Journey. She awaits the swallow's return, for they carry the sun on their wingtips, linger just long enough to point with it. They thrill a promised mnemonic, pipit between the great tits, advising stammer, the soft hammer of a pheasant. She fears short summers, the fleet flick of forked tails as the swallows leave, autumn gasping. Horse chestnuts spill, sycamore seeds tumble, apples, cider, the ground. She waits out the hoar frost at her hedgerow, rose hips and sloes fattening on gaunt limbs. Then a single peck at her window, an omen. Childlike superstition rages in the hallows of illness. How far is Africa? To Botswana and the reed beds pinned beneath the jackalberry tree where his tiny shadow roosts. The black cuckool, the pink-throated longclaw, the wattled crane will dip in unguent pools where the warm breeze slips along the delta. Fly high, bird. Fly, fight, and keep flying. And when all is done, fly further still with stars on your wings. Once again, thanks, John, for having me today. I hope you enjoy trees as the spring progresses, because this is their time. When we get into April, May, June, and they come into leaf, into those beautiful colours. And the colours of autumn are something, but the colours of spring, well, they're something else. Thanks a million.
And thank you so much, Sinead. That was wonderful. Thank you. It's always a delight to have Sinead. That's it, SineadMcClure.com. I'm surprised we haven't had a rush of people from YouTube. Last week, it was all YouTube that were making comments. It's everybody from Facebook. So I hope you YouTube people are watching this okay, that is coming through to you fair. Anyway, we've got some lovely people. There's Kate Cloud Sparks here. Hello, Kate. Trees are waking up here. Stephen Fox Griswold's here from frigid Minnesota. And Sherry is thanking Sinead. The poem's lovely and inspirational. I love seeing the pups. Yeah, that'll be great. Yeah, the pups is a lovely novelty, and the hearing of the robin in the background and seeing the robin. And I hope we do get Sarah Humble, because she'll bring her little pup in as well. So it could be a bit of a dog show as well. And of course, the dogs love being out on the woods there. So if anybody's on YouTube, say hello. I'm just concerned that we're not getting the comments through from you yet. So that's terrific anyway. But as this is the Nature Folklore show, I think I need to share a bit of tree folklore as well that connects up with your planting. And I think everybody has heard of the saying of knock on wood. You might have various interpretations of this. There you go. There's the Eddie Floyd 45 from way back on the Stax Vault. Maybe that's all you've heard of knock on wood, is Eddie Floyd on that. But I think many of us say it as a habit without thinking what knock on wood may mean. It's something we say when we're looking for good luck, of course, or for things to work out for us. And when we just want things to work out how we would like and hoping things will go well. But knock on wood is a phrase that may actually go back thousands of years. And it's actually said in many languages around the world. And we may think these days our internet service is more important than trees around us. But if we think about it, we can remind ourselves that trees actually provide the materials for construction, for shelter, fires, food, medicine, and all those books that have been described as well. And when we think more about the benefits from trees, we start to think of the awe. We think of our awe of the trees, from planting right through to growing. And I must show you this off. This is my granddaughter. She's now 12, and she had an oak tree. She lives up in Morayshire in Scotland, and she had a tree planted when she was born. She's now 12 years old, and this is taken on her 12th birthday of Ayla's oak. Ayla actually is related to apple tree. Anyway, that's a beautiful thing. I know with our kids, we started them off with a dog and a cat, of course, that lived through their lives. But the tree is a fantastic thing, and we did that too. Just and the awe of that as it starts growing. That's my point with that anyway. But some people think that knock on wood came from a Saxon translation, or even much earlier, arriving with the mythological Milesians, sons of Mil, who, it seems in my mind from the stories told, they were the ones that became the Gaels, whose language may have eventually brought us this the Nogafir. If I can bring that up, the Nogafir. Do I have that? I think I have that, just to show you what I'm talking about here. There you go. There you go, Nogafir, if you want to say knock on wood in a different kind of way. But wherever the origin of knock on wood comes from, the folklore does seem to be similar. because knock on wood is also regarded as calling on the protective tree spirits that live in the trees. And that seems to have come from an ancient Germanic and Saxon folklore, very rich over there when we were in northeast Germany doing a workshop on apple trees. That actually was very abundant in their feeling there, that you knock on the trees to bring forth the spirits, and especially if the trees are by water. And I'm going to be covering that in a couple of weeks as well. But some of us may call on these tree spirits as being the she or the fairies. They may be our ancestors or goddesses, and some logical atheists might even believe our beliefs in these beings being present was inspired by the noises. And true enough, when you're among trees, you get these creaky noises, don't you? And you don't know if it's actually the wind or whether they're actually talking to us. So there's a lot of folklore mythology can be built up on that, depending sometimes on what you've been consuming. But you don't have to consume everything. Just the pinene and pinene especially, and all the other fragrances, the mosses, that'll kind of inebriate you and enchant you into believing and seeing and feeling and connecting with many things. Now, for many people, touching a tree, and especially hugging a tree, again, I haven't filled the thing here. Let's see. Oh, yeah, that's pretty good, isn't it? Hugging the tree engages a connection that feels safe, doesn't it? It serves a deep-rooted, protected feeling. To me, it's as if the tree brings back collective memory. And I think that's what we call folklore, really. Now, let us look at oaks. It's a favorite tree of tree planters, and I know Owen will be talking about oaks because that's very much the foundation of the Gaelic woodland project. But oaks are very much a favorite of people planting their first trees. Might not be the most sensible. I know here on the tree labyrinth, it was boggy, so I had to get willow and alder first, and then follow that up with hazels. And then when that was all established and I drunk the water that was boggy, then I could bring in the oak and the ash. So it depends where you are. But even so, if you've got a manicured garden or you've got a nice bit of loose soil, it's a bit sandy, you'll get those oaks in and they'll be fine. But people, I think, they feel a kind of holiness with oaks, don't they? Do I have a bit of a holy oak here? I should have a holy oak. No, my holy oak photo didn't come out. Oh, yes, there it is. There you go. There's a nice old vintage holy oak there, people praying by the oak. So I think a lot of people feel that sense of holiness, and they want to contemplate around they want the spirits of the oak to guide them. So they're in contemplation to get that response. Now, to me, being present at a mature oak tree can feel similar to visiting a holy well. Excuse me. And of course, when you're at a tree, or the sap coming up is the water that would be in the well anyway. So there's a huge relationship. But we stand before the oak, we touch it, or even hug it. And by doing so, it's as if we are actually connected and we're overflowed with a sense of reverence, respect, and such a passionate feeling of its strength and its protection as well. So maybe we bounce off of the stories of druids as well, and their sacred oak grows. Here's an old druid by an oak there. And when we think of druids, we may think of magic. So we may think of oaks being containers of that magic too. Is that so? Make some comments about that. Now, a known healing use of oaks from the ancient past is if you tap the sap water from an oak, it's excellent healing for external wounds. I know another place it's the tannins. And of course, we get tannins, we use tea bags and tea leaves. But with oak, it's much more stronger, and it's great for neutralizing poisons, sealing up wounds, and also apply externally the oak sap, and it'll bring down a fever as well. Now, the magic of all this, tannins, as I was saying, let's see if I can get a nice picture. I had something related to this. No, I don't think it came up. Never mind. Oh, yeah, there we go. This is what I want to show. There you go. It's another great use for creating aging flavors of wines in oak cast, and that's to do with the tanning as well. So not only tanning for leather, great for making the wine taste good from the cast there. But regarding oak species, we can be simple to say they're white oaks and red oaks. Let's just think about those two. Now, the white oaks, they're the most common, very native in Ireland. We have our own Cecil oak here. Let's see if I can get a Cecil oak. Here you go. This is quite common, what they look like in Ireland. If you go to Kerry, if you go to Union Wood in Sligo, in the Union Wood, about 2,000 or 3,000 of those. Beautiful when they all come out and leave below Ben Bourbon. They're kind of around, at the point of Ben Bourbon below. Beautiful woodland. And there is also it's been imported for a long time. We've got this dramatic pedunculate oak of England, and of course that's all around Europe, and that's very useful. But the white oaks, whichever species, they provide more tannin than the red oaks, so that makes them much more healing, and perhaps they attract more reverence because of that. Even the Druids are said to have dressed in white, don't they? Anyway, wild oaks are very beautiful. White oaks can, especially the pedunculate one, they can grow too big for us and too big for the most gardens. And that casts a lot of shade. And I talked, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, if you wanted to give off more oxygen from your woodland, you're better off, funnily enough, by putting the alders and the hazels and growing them closer together. And the amount of oxygen and the amount of carbon dioxide sequestration from that could be much greater than from the oaks that you've got to have spread widely. Anyway, I'm going off to the subject in the past. But usually you don't have to think about them being too big for at least 20 years. You could coppice them. Oaks are great. If you coppice them, a lot of people just want them to be grand like the pictures I've shown. But if you coppice them every 10 years, and I believe that's ethical because oaks are very useful as a usable wood for our needs. And it's also considerate to let oaks be free as well and become big, like I've said. But you're not going to, by coppicing, you're not going to affect the animals and the wildlife too much. In fact, you're going to get 2 or 3 trunks come up where you've taken one down. So it could be a bit of a benefit. It's one of the few human management things that can actually bring a benefit, I think. But my personal favorite of all oaks is the northern red oak. I know they're not native, but they have lush, bright green leaves in summer. And then I've got a couple in the tree labyrinth, I must admit. There you go, there's one. So they're very young, but look at that, how stunning it is. When you get the autumn, you get the maroon, it goes to a red leaf. And then after that, it goes into a brown leaf. I haven't got a picture of that. And that actually hangs all winter. Now, rowan, that's another lovely tree to consider. I've not had great success in the gardens here with them. Very strange, because it's the only deer. The deer sneak in sometimes, and it's the only tree that the deer go for, especially when the blossoms come out. So they munch away, and I've had no luck with the rowans because the deer want them. But 1 or 2 haven't been eaten by deer, so I have got ground ones. But in folklore, the rowan, let's just show you a rowan. This one's up in Donegal anyway. I think that's up, it's in Donegal. It's near the Doonwell and up there in Donegal. And it's always believed it's the presence for good. And you can use, in various ways, rowan, it said you can use it, burn it beside it to call upon the presence of the earth goddess. And baby children's cradles and their first beds, they used to be made with rowan too, due to belief that rowans draw protection from either the earth mother, the she, the angels, and as well as prevent the stolen child fairy trickery that I've explained. And the earliest of harps, a lot of the peasant harps, the classics, that type of stuff. The body was willow, but the actual frame made from rowan as well, because the early music was to drop the inspiration from the she. So that's why that was used. Now, there is a tradition of planting a rowan close to your front door, but not too close, otherwise it could damage the property. So, but close is a way to have a rowan quite close to your home. It's said to ward off disturbing visitors, whether they're seen or unseen. But having a rowan nearby was also believed to be a way, as I say, of disturbing off the visitors. Now, it's intriguing how the rowan trees have struggled here to say but I got a couple of beauties. And usually the rowan is one of the least fussiest trees, though they do like to stand alone. Sometimes they're not very community minded within a woodland. But they can take up extreme damp and dry and frost conditions, very hardy. Now, one more tree I'd like to talk about before we move on is the elder. And we all love the elder, I think. Now, like with hawthorn and blackthorn, do treat the elder with respect, because there's many legends about the spirits of witches on earth. Now, if I show that I've done, I don't like the word witches, but I'm not going to go into that much now. But anyway, let's keep it simple. The witches on earth are said to live in elder trees, and I think this is taken from a tarot card. There you go. There's an elder witch there. But if you watch my Witches' Cauldron and Ale series way back, it's the early part of the Sawana series. As I say, it explains why I'm not too keen on the witch word and what involved in. But elder trees are said to be sensitive and must be treated well. And no needless knocking on this wood, for example. So no knocking on wood on the elder trees. You might get reverse of what you're looking for. Now, another folklore belief is never start a fire with elder twigs. Otherwise, the resident witch will be set free and haunt your house. Anyway, unlike rowan, never plant an elder near your front door. For that same reason, the witch spirits are said to jump in and take over your home for mischief. So treat elder trees right and without intrusion, and the resident witch spirits will actually ensure you're supplied with wonderful elderflowers and then the elderberries, which have all those wonderful benefits for your good health. Anyway, it's time for another guest from all my waffling there. We've got Grace Wells in the background. Wonderful. She's got some poems and she's going to talk about hometree.ie that she's connected with. And I did air Grace's wonderful award-winning Inbolt Vision video during our Inbolt series, and you absolutely loved it. And since then, I've learned that Grace is also connected with Hometree, and here's a Hometree crowd in action, hometree.ie, and they're doing wonderful work establishing and conserving permanent woodland in Ireland. So here's Grace Wells. Let's see, and she's got all kinds of things lined up. So I'm dying to find out all about it. So good afternoon, Grace. Let's get you on. How are you doing? You weren't feeling too well a little while ago.
Well, hello, John. It's lovely to see you. And maybe you can hear on my voice, I'm a little bit throaty, but I'm good. I'm good. It's lovely to be here. I'm in County Clare, and right now the sun is shining. So that's a good start to the chat.
Right, and I think I will start with the Hometree. What is your connection with Hometree? Because it's a wonderful project. If you could explain what Hometree does, for example.
Yeah, well, I'm really lucky, John, that I live just outside Ennisdiamond, and Hometree is a native tree charity that is based here in Ennisdiamond. They have a 17-acre site that is their Hometree headquarters, where they're growing saplings, harvesting seed, creating lovely ecosystems from some land that was kind of a bit neglected, really, but it's got some very lovely wildflowers and different things growing there already. They've planted thousands of trees there. And they also, they do a few different things. So they try to connect up with landowners who have land that they'd like to leave in perpetuity as forest. So Hometree help landowners who want to make forests. And they're also working with farmers around Milltown Malbay with a new scheme to try and bring more trees into farmland, which is a great project that they're really excited about, because that's their key. As much as they themselves plant a lot of trees, they really want to get farmers on board, because the bulk of Ireland is owned by farmers. So their hope is to work with a lot of farmers and get many more native trees across the country. So that's a little bit about what Hometree is. And I do two things. I volunteer there pretty much every 2 weeks. They have volunteer tree planting days all through the winter, where we start from 10 till 4. And people literally come from all over the country. It's quite amazing, all ages. all types of people. It's really great. And we plant trees.
Oops.
Oh,
Sorry
yeah.
about that. You got thrown off. Carry on. You were saying how you locally plant trees.
Yeah, so there's these tree planting days, the first and the third Saturday of the month, and I help out with that. People get lunch. I help with the cooking, and just generally sort of help anchor the days as one of the team, really. And then the other thing that I helped Home Tree to do last year was to put this book together. It's called Under Summer Pastures. The subtitle, Explorations and Essays from Ireland's Temperate Rainforests. So it's a really, really beautiful exploration. I'm just going to show a few pictures because that's possibly the best way I can do that, of these very particular forest ecosystems that still just about by the skin of their teeth hang on here in Ireland, although they're all endangered. The best known one would be the Killarney National Park. But you can see that they're predominantly, they're very damp. They usually have a higher moisture content than other forest places. And so they have an awful lot of mosses, bryophytes, epiphytes, and they make this very specific type of ecosystem. And it's probably the most diverse ecosystem in Ireland. We tend to think that our meadows and our wildflowers are very diverse, but because of the great number of ferns and bryophytes, mosses, epiphytes, this is really where the great diversity is. And this one is a willow woodland that's here in Clare. And I'll just show you, the book was inspired by Ray O'Folliu. There he is with his dog. And Ray found these, one or two of these beautiful forests and the temperate rainforests. And then he just became fascinated with them and kept on looking and looking and finding more and more of them. And I was trying to show some photos on the screen, but actually they went on sideways. But if you can see here, I'm just going to arrange this. This is sort of the Kerry uplands. And what we get used to here in Ireland is these absolutely sheep-denuded hillsides where there's nothing growing at all, you can see. But Ray's point is that it doesn't have to be like that. It's really because there's so many sheep grazing. And if you see this little island, whoops, my hand is going backwards, you can see the island here, safe from the sheep. It is absolutely covered in trees. And so Ray's point is that if we navigated this kind of landscape management better, we can have the sheep and the trees, and bring back
the mixing of the twos. That's the thing. It's lovely to bring that in. Is you don't just put the trees; it's what you attract in as well, and that's a huge advantage. Now you've got some pictures you've thrown up here. Is this connected with the poems you're about to say?
Those are rainforest pictures. But they're to the sides. You have to tilt your head, John, all the way to the side.
Oh, right. Okay. I see what you've done. Right.
Okay. You kind of did it for me. I have no idea why. But you get a sense of all down the bark of the tree there, the moss is growing. And
okay. There we go. We'll try that one. Okay. That's probably good for our African viewers. There we go. Okay, brilliant. Now, poems, the poems you've got for us.
I have. Well, I'm delighted, John, since we were talking, this is my latest book. It's actually only coming out at the beginning of May. It hasn't yet arrived in the world, but I have some early copies. And you can see the front there is a bee or an insect hotel, and the book is called The Church of the Love of the World. And that
brilliant.
That takes its name from Gobnet's Chapel out on Inisheer, the Aran Islands, Kilgraw and Dowan, which translates as the Church of the Love of the World. And I was out on the Aran Islands in September, and the title came like a gift, really, for the book. The book was pretty advanced, nearly ready to go, and this title really seemed to address my eco-poetry themes, really, my concern for the environment, and I want to say kind of like our secret weapon in responding to the crisis is our personal love of the world. And the more we connect to that love of the world, the more likely we are to advocate and fight for the environment. So I thought I would read the first poem, which is in the book. It's simply called Vestige. And I suppose I was thinking, as somebody who plants a lot of trees and thinks about the nature and the environment all the time, the discomfort of printing a book which is made from trees and requires trees to be cut down, which is kind of the opposite of what I would be seeking. So I wrote this poem, Vestige. Things being so urgent, when you open a book, its leaves should take you back to the forest they came from, the creak of beech, the wind-restless pine. Between these covers, a scent of resin and loam. A book's spine, like the trunk of a tree to lean into, the pulp of its paper, a fine mesh of twig and sky. Each word on the page so verdant, viridian, that you soften into moss and strengthen into the stubborn, protective root of briar. Type and ink, like the small handiwork of ant, the quiet labor of beetle and wasp, mending the world between end papers in such a deep, entangling way as to make you part of the woodland, embowered, arboreal, sylvan.
Gorgeous. Wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us, Grace. And an introduction to your book. And Sinead McClure, who stepped in, and we had her earlier, and heard the lovely Grace there. And as I say, Charlene, it was great. We've at last got a YouTube person come through. I was wondering whether we were getting through to them. And Breezy Kelly is here. Thanks very much, and I hope we'll have you back again, Grace, because we love the video, and your presentation today of Home Tree was fabulous. And the gorgeous poem to cap it, the ice on it all. So, despite your sore throat, I thought you were wonderful. So, thank you again, and I hope we'll have you back.
Thanks so much, John.
Have a wonderful week and a wonderful spring. The lovely Grace Wells there, absolutely fabulous there. I better get back to some comments because you've been chatting away there in the background. Anne got taken by the oaks, so incorporated in folklore and reverence because perhaps unknown to people long ago, at least in North America, they host plants that by far and away support the most Lepidoptera species, so important in supporting our bird population and hundreds of butterfly and moth species. The amount of insect life in an oak, especially after it's fallen, even hundreds and hundreds. It's amazing how important that is. So thank you very much for that, Anne. And of course, the green pig's gone. Sorry, Davina, I put the tree root planting there. I'll explain why. We got Glenda in, more YouTubes. It's lovely hearing Sinead on trees and poem. Here from chilly Dublin today, arrived late, so running behind on video. And there we go. Switch to YouTube. FB Sound was not synced up on the computer there. I'm getting perhaps better. And here we go. We definitely Jane Long from YouTube as well. First time live. Thank you very much, Jane. Thanks for joining in. And Sinead said thanks to Sinead earlier. And Sinead has just joined us now. Super. Wonderful Grace from yeah, wonderful T.S. Hardwick there. Penny Stevenson's, thank you, Grace. Looking forward to the book. And Breezy loved that too. And Sherry too. So there we go. All absolutely and well spoken of as well. Anyway, we're moving on because we've still got plenty of show left. Because another tree that I would really like to say, well, I've talked about this a fair bit in the past, if I can get down to my pictures again. It's the hazel. A few words about hazel, the wood of wisdom. And I'm not going to recite my Call the Hazel this week because those regulars know a couple of weeks ago that I did recite it, and I had the lovely Claire accompanying me with her harps with the Call the Hazel. But there is a very well shared story of the 9 hazel trees being the source of the Boyne near Carberry in County Kildare. I haven't got any pictures of that, but there's more than 9 hazels there. But there you go, a nice group of hazels to set the scene of that. But that, it said the hazels, and through this, they're said to have provided the people of area their source of wisdom from the hazels. Maybe I've got the wrong picture behind them. Although last year when I was doing this, I planted the hazel tree, so let's keep it there. Anyway, there's better known stories about the salmon of knowledge, probably, because they're of the hazelnuts fallen from the hazel trees at wells and the sources of rivers. I couldn't get one for this week if you look at past editions, but there's a hazel over a big body of water there. Anyway, so as I said, I told a couple of short stories about this a couple of weeks ago with the salmon of knowledge and the hazel wisdom, and include the bubbles one. I think you like the bubbles one because that's the lesser told story where you inhale the bubbles and that's where you get the wisdom. Anyway, I'm going to talk about the differences between wisdom and knowledge when we do Trees in Water, which is in 2 weeks' time on the 27th of March. But today, I'd like to suggest that you bring on a bit of wisdom into your space by planting a hazel tree or 2 or more if you can. And in fact, there's a real shortage. If you've got a few fields, you do very well as a wee business if you planted a lot of willow and hazel, because there's a huge shortage amongst basket weavers for both of them. So we could do with a lot more hazel farming, not only for the whips, but also for the nuts as well. And we heard, we were talking about bringing other things, bringing the animals in amongst the trees as something you can well do. Grace was talking about it. We can well do with hazel trees. So it's an incredible mixed farming opportunity. Now, last year, as I said, I planted a hazel, and I actually went around with a roving camera as we planted hazels of the tree labyrinth. But I'm not going to encore that video. And I was actually going to go into a bare root tree planting session right now, but I see the time is moving on, and I'm dying to get Owen on. So I think we'll see how we get on after Owen. I might come back to this. We'll get to the hands-on of doing the tree planting as well. If not, I might do a side video, and I'll upload that, and you can do with that. Anyway, there's something else I wanted to get on with here. I was going to talk about in weeding and basil. We'll talk about that over the next couple of weeks. Right. Of course, one thing is we're thinking of when we do our weed sanctuary is what trees do we plant where? Now, if your land is boggy, and I've already mentioned this like it was here in Carricrory, the priority is get the alder and willow in. And birches can be planted too. And not long after the birches, you can put the hawthorn, the blackthorn, the rowan, and possibly poplar. I'm not a big fan of the poplars and aspens myself. And I don't think that many people in Ireland are. It's nice to have 1 or 2. I do have a white poplar in the tree labyrinth, but that's enough as far as the poplars go. If you live on or near the coast or by a large loch, you can add strawberry tree. That'll work. Holly, white beam, very popular in Kerry to do that. Also sycamore, holm oak, sweet chestnut, though they're not native. I've discovered they're an excellent addition if you buy a water, if you buy a loch. Now, if your planting site is cold and that soil never seems to warm up, you'll find the birch, the hawthorn, the oak even, if you're oak, if you've got some nice light soil. Also the ash and juniper. Pines, hazel, beech too. They'll all be happy. They'll all still work in a cold soil. But you could add sycamore, lime, larch, and cedar as well, because they will thrive on cold sites. Now, if you've got heavy clay soil, think about the alder. It'll break it up. Willows too. Birch is okay. Holly actually likes the heavy clay soil. Blackthorn, crab apples are fine. And hazel, they'll still work their way through it. Might stunt the hazel, but they'll still work. Now, if you're very confined, say you've only got a wee garden and you want to do a tree sanctuary, you're very good with the birch, the beech, the hawthorn, the alder, and the willows. Hornbeam's not bad. I've got hornbeam in the tree labyrinth. Not an intrusion at all. It's growing great. They're 13 years old now. Cherry, they're good, and hazel, they're your trees for that. And in the lighter sandy soils, birch, pine, ash, oaks, elm, and hazel. And you may be able to add some more wisdom to my list. What's your tree planting and growing experiences? You can give me some more information on one you just shared. As I say, I'm just about heading into overtime now. It's an important subject, and time to bring Owen Connaughton on board of the Gaelic Woodland Trust. It's time to get my earphones on. So this is fabulous. And we'll get a word here. Oh, we got Jerry Donlan, who's appeared in the background. He's our last guest. So hi, Jerry. I'm glad you're here. But let's say hello to Owen. Hi, good afternoon, Owen. How are you there? Let's see.
Oh, John, really appreciate the opportunity. Really enjoying the show
fantastic. As well. And you're certainly loud and clear and very visible. I think the appropriate thing, because it is a project, and there's a huge reverence on the sort of national symbolism of this. So if you can introduce what the Gaelic Woodland Project is, and I don't know why I'm moving on the screen around, that'd be fabulous.
Yeah, of course. So the Gaelic Woodland Project is a registered charity, and our mission is to plant a commemorative forest in the Midlands dedicated to the international Irish community. There is a population of, they say, over 70 million people around the world who share a connection to Ireland, and we want to honour that connection, to heal the wounds of history, and to replant the roots of the community in the Midlands. Yeah, that's really it. We want to plant an oak forest. Obviously, the sessile oak was the predominant species, but we're really interested in exploring how much ecological complexity we can bring to the land. So a path will go through the forest so we can bring schools. And there's a great utility in having it in the Midlands, hopefully in Meath, so people from the city can get out and they can see a native Irish woodland. And in 2045, we're going to place a standing stone in a central grove to commemorate the 200-year anniversary of the famine. That's really it in a nutshell. And it's entirely inclusive. Good. So everyone on board is volunteering. Yeah.
Yeah, or in an acorn in that case. Yeah, those you brought up the main points that I noticed. The one thing, the 2 points, you want to bring it into the middle of Ireland. You're going to near as the old Mead as possible into the centre. And I think I've got some sort of map up to give some indication. It's taken from your website, if I can actually get it up, the picture of that. Give some idea what you're talking about. There we go. On the left there, that's where the Gaelic would, there, right in the middle of Ireland. That's where they hope to plan. And there's the folks walking up. And of course, the other thing is how you're going straight into oaks. You want to go straight into the oaks because of the symbolism and what that means in so much folklore, so much mythology, and just by the strength of that. And I've got a series of poems, Almost Tale of the Trees. And the one thing when I get to the oak is telling about how the roots go so deep, and no matter what storm you get, it may weave and again, but the oak doesn't fall down. It's still there. Branches may snap off. So, you know, with what your project is doing, it seems to be incredible symbolism as well as essential native woodland. So what do you say about that? Oh, I put the picture on. Yeah, here we go.
Very well said, John. Yeah. No, it's great. I love how you're seeing the symbolism of the oak, the taproot going deep. Like, this is for posterity. No one is going to be alive to see this thing in full fruition. But we're sowing these seeds now. Like the deforestation of Ireland, and it was deforested, took generations, and it will take generations to heal her. But I think with this, it's really about the empowerment of it. that we can become stewards of the land. And there's people across the island doing great work. And it's very important that we all support and encourage each other. But with this, we're hoping that, well, like the forest is going to be divided into different plots, and everyone who donates is actually going to get a little piece of it. They're all going to get 21-year licensed plots, so that you'll actually own a piece of the forest. And then at the 21-year cycle, it facilitates renewal. So you can give it to your kids, or you can give it to your nephew, you can gift it to somebody, and it can be renewed. So it's facilitating intergenerational cooperation. So we can strategically expand, link this woodland to existing forests, and explore opportunities for ecosystem services. So a lot of the rivers of Ireland are polluted by our intensified agriculture. Actually, intensified agriculture is the #1 polluter, especially in the Midlands. So we want to buy the land to ensure that it stays a forest forever, and plant trees adjacent to the rivers to create these buffers to absorb the nitrogen and the phosphorus and all these chemicals to restore the integrity of the riverbank. And we're hoping that with this invitation of inclusivity and skill sharing, that we can draw in capital from internationally that really isn't there to do the work that needs to be done on this island. So it's a drip.
Yeah, incredibly so.
Drip up, I think, yeah, it's the kids.
What you're saying, what it reminds me a lot of, and I might finish off at the end with it. Are you familiar with Trees for Life in Scotland? They've been replanting and recovering the Caledonian forest. I've got 2 sons who've been involved with Trees for Life. Exactly like you say, the way they did their fundraising in the beginning is everybody got a little part of it, and they've now even got a green cemetery on as part of that. But it's worth looking to say, it'll give you ideas, because one of my sons said, I can't imagine Ireland being ready for this, but this is what you're doing. You're heading for something very similar to what Trees for Life are doing, and it's absolutely wonderful with that, and especially the incorporation of not only the people but the wildlife. The one thing that happened in Scotland is the wildcats increased, the eagle population increase, and over here you're going to find the population of the pine martins and various other bird species. You might even find the buzzards and the eagles increase, that type of thing. So that's it's wonderful on that. It's funny. Yes, to say we could go on for ages on that, but the ethics, and one of the things about yourself, you go to the website, the one thing I noticed straight away, and it's like the idea that you're going straight in with the oaks. There's a lot of people, and myself included, you get into the dream and the vision of the woodlands, but you've gone in there and done all the bureaucracy. You've got yourself done as a proper charity. You've got yourself registered with every bureaucratic piece of nonsense. You've got those roots dug down so nobody can topple you down. I found that was quite impressive.
Yeah, like the oak. Like just last week, we were speaking with the Irish Embassy in San Francisco. So we have letters of endorsement from the Ministers of State for the Diaspora from 2019 and 2021. I've spent years putting this together. I work in peatland regeneration, but this is, as I said, a drip operation. And I really feel like that taproot going deep, that this is something stable that we can just grow slowly. But since we're here and speaking of bureaucracy, there's really something that I'd love to bring up, John, if I can.
Yes.
So are you familiar with cherry laurel?
No. I should be, and I have read of it, but it's totally gone out of my mind. But I know it's important.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. So cherry laurel was introduced to Ireland in the 17th century because it's an evergreen plant, very nice glossy leaves, and it makes really good hedging.
I misinterpreted you. Cherry laurel. I was thinking of something else. Oh yeah, the cherry laurel is a real nuisance. Yes. Carry on.
Yeah. So the National Parks and Wildlife Service say it's the #1 threat to our remaining native woodlands. We don't have much remaining, so we really should heed this warning. This is an invasive species. However, because of inconsistencies in legislation, you're still able to buy this and plant it. It's actually encouraged as an ornamental plant. So we have a petition, talking about the bureaucracy, we have a petition that we're putting to the Oireachtas Joint Committee on public petitions to have this plant actually labelled as an invasive species and to prohibit the planting of this species on the island of Ireland. And alternatively, we should use traditional Irish hedgerows. So if people want to get on board with that, they can go onto the website, they can look at the blog and sign the petition. We're going to be submitting it on the 28th of this month. And this would be a very small but significant declaration of intent and continuity in our policy towards better environmental actions.
Certainly, and I see that around here, the cherry laurel, even around Roscommon, a couple of beautiful places. I know around Lochmina, Knockranny Woods, and over just all the way around it. And also the famous hazelwood in Sligo. That's getting it really bad now. And but as you say, people encourage it because it is pretty, and you do get a lovely fragrance from it. But there again, there's you can get that from quite a few things. Rhododendrons. I mean, we all love the rhododendrons, but what a nightmare that is. Cherry laurel here sounds like what we got in Bradford Pear, and it's doing the hardwoods in the US. Yes, it certainly is. Going back to oaks, a lot of people are putting in comments about hazel, which I love. What are your comments on oaks and the deep taproot? What does that symbolize? What does that say to you? I had somebody up here who was saying about their love of oaks, and this is a US one. I'm trying to think. I think it was Davina, mossy oak. What were you saying here? And the willow trees. Thanks for doing these Sunday trees. Ups are going backwards and forwards. The trees have a fan club. I love it. Well, I hope we're all here, but people are giving their hazel experiences. First catkins, give it a couple of years there, Paddy, you'll actually get nuts. And apart from the oaks, what other species have you in mind? I know that the oaks are a huge symbolism. I think you're sort of very brave going straight into it because of the soils required. Where you got a vision, is it Esker? Is it an Esker soil where you're going to, Owen?
Where we're looking, we're not 100% sure of the soil yet, but obviously the right tree in the right place. And we want to create an ecologically complex site. So that includes the mycelium and the mushrooms. We want to bring the soil health back. There's a great book, Isabella Tree, Rewilding, the work they did in South England. Truly an inspiration. So we want to do this slowly to create the conditions for nature to return into that site. So it's not going to be just oak trees. We're looking at tiered flora and forestry. And I'm happy that you mentioned hazelwood, because that place in summer, my goodness, it is a joy to the spirit. And there's too few of those sites available to people. I was teaching in a forest school in Northern Ontario, near Algonquin National Park, and it was only there that I appreciated the seasons. After 30 years on the planet, I only there, so then that inspired me. Like, no, we used to take kids from inner city Toronto into the woods so they could reconnect, and it was like, I didn't even realize it, but this was a reconnection for me to the land. And the people of Ireland, we deserve it. It's the island's ecological inheritance. So as I said before, this is entirely inclusive, and it's kind of an experiment to what can we do? What work can we do? So if anyone is interested in this kind of stuff, obviously everyone here is, but if anybody wants to get on board and help out, they can. So we're going to put some considerable time into planning the forest before we begin planting anything. We're going to have a look at the hydrology, the soil, and working with other organizations to make it a communal work where people can come together to work together,
one thing I love is a birch foundation forest, because where there's birch, that's what starts a forest. Now, and I've seen this in action, and I absolutely love it. You get the birch in, which would come by wind and birds anyway. Once you got the birch in, everything else seems to arrive. And I found that here, the tree labyrinth is only 1/4 of an acre, but we did get some birch in, as I say, to get rid of the water, the willow and the alder was there. But once everything was growing, it's amazing what came along, because we'd see the animals, the hares would be about, the pine martens, all the different species of bird, they got something else. And of course, they got their poop, the wind is blowing stuff in. And I just love that with the birch foundation, how if you leave it alone, the forest creates itself. That's another thing. And I do have found with some plantations, when people have let that happen, if they then bring the oak in, especially if the soil was difficult, somehow it's like bringing the cockerel amongst the hens. You know, that suddenly the hens are all over the place. Bring the cockerel in, and you somehow, it ties it all together, and you get this wood world web going on underneath. As and again, I love that, because you're actually in partnership with nature. That's just one of the things I love with that, and I often think the oaks might appreciate that. Just one idea, anyway.
Yeah, the birch blooms the forest.
It does.
And I've seen it before. You know, and the birch comes in, and then life will come thereafter. Magical tree. I'd say one of my favorites as well. But it's going to be an experience, I think, and an experiment to work with natural processes, permaculture principles, and just slowly build this up. Even the mosses, like bringing in the different bryophytes. This isn't really too well known, but Ireland has 3/4 the species of mosses in Europe.
Oh yes,
and that would be like the temperate rainforest climate that we have so much moisture, and these things just absorb the nutrients, and they cling to the trees and the rocks. And I personally, I love the bryophytes. I love the mosses. I love getting down close onto the soil. I see the trees as being like the canopy. The trees are the roof of the cathedral, and beneath that's where you have the life, you know.
Have you ever been to the Brackloom forest near Crowpatrick? That's definitely a wild forest. That's a beautiful one for the ferns, and just everything is very green. You've certainly got the lichen, the mosses. I've never seen such an array. And there's a river run through it. And it really is an ancient temperate forest. As you say, we have very few of them. But Brackloon, you really, as if you're going into pre-human times, prehistoric times, a beautiful one to go to. And I love by Loch Me, although it's been sort of reorganized a bit, the St. John's Wood. That's one I love. And I noticed Native Woodland Trust have taken that over, which is lovely. So that's, as you say, they're just small pockets of ancient woodland. And you got to start now for the generations, just like what you're doing. I think it's absolutely fabulous you're there. Fabulous the encouragement that you're giving and the support. And you've really got your roots down deep. That's one thing I love. So, yeah, thank you very much to give us an introduction to the Gaelic woodland. You know, I would love to go on forever. I do have other guests and other things, but thank you for joining in with us, Owen. That was fabulous. I hope we can have you again so you can show us some progress of what's happening with the Gaelic woodland project. There's the website, everyone. I got it up. And look into it, support it if you can. And yeah, thanks very much, Owen. We'll see you again sometime, hopefully in person. So thank you, and greatly appreciated.
Yes, Gurf Mahoguth, thank you. Really appreciate the opportunity, and you're doing great work here. I'm loving the show. I'm loving the conversation.
Okay. I will have more from you soon. Okay, thanks very much. Owen, the Gaelic Woodland Project there, and I think it's time for me to actually change. I was going to go on the bare route, so I'm going to change my background to something bit. Let's try the tree in the water. That's actually in New Zealand anyway. That gives us a change. Nice one, thanks, says Little Wing. Oh, we've got someone else come up. Okay, let's read that one. Second that, John. Interesting idea to plant the birch first, see how the order of the orm lined up with the natural order of growing a forest. Now, if you watch our own editions, and I do run a few in the year, you'll find the one thing that is identified that trees are only one thing that the OM seems to represent, but there is a tree language. So if you can go back on past editions where we talk about tree language, it's one of my favorite subjects. Wells and tree language, my two. But interesting. Of course, when you go through the cycle, it's best to birch. You've got best to the birch is the first thing we start with, isn't it? And then we go round to the yew, the regenerating tree, and that just slides straight into transition straight into birch again. So the whole thing goes in a cycle rather than one to the end. Anne, let's see what you got saying. The birch blooms the forest. I love that. I do. Beautiful phrase there from Owen. I love that. And then Penny saying mycelium aspect of woodlands is fascinating. The whole network, all working underground, is often bring up about the yin and yang, how they say the yin, the feminine, the cold, the dark, the womb. And that's where all the mycelium stuff happens, all that intertwining happens. And then, of course, when everything comes into the yang, into the sun, the heat, it's everything for themselves, isn't it? So, yeah, fascinating, whole yin-yang balance going on. Hazel, 30 years old, grew back after being chopped down in 2008. Yeah, you can coppice it. Hazel, you can chop it down. I think every 8 years you can coppice it. And you're not disturbing the undergrowth, all of the insects and all of the mycelium and everything going on the ground. When you coppice, you're not really disturbing that. You're actually generating a whole new life and a whole new youthfulness. So that's wonderful. You've experienced that. And it will increase the yield. That's why people coppice. The clear felling is complete nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. And then we're going on about that's a lot like the Bradford pear. We've talked about that one. I must have missed because you made so many statements here. Are you really coming out with the comments? Fantastic. What we got here? Sending love and light from across the puddle. There's Little Wing. Thanks very much. I better get on with the show since we're at 3:15. Let's get on with because we've got one more lovely guest as well. And I'm going to waffle. As I say, I'm not going to waffle. I'm always waffling, aren't I? Right now, to add to a bit of to what Owen was speaking of, I'd like to talk a bit about Woodland League's Forest in a Box scheme. We had Andrewson Ledger on last year, and let's see if I can get him. There he is. Sort of a little picture of him there. He was live with us, and he explained the lovely Woodland League project, the Forest in a Box. Here we go. And the Forest in a Box, it was inspired by the film Call of the Forest, directed, presented, and produced by Diana Beresford Kruger. And some of you have actually been talking to me, asking if I've actually seen that film. Have you seen it? They said that, it's got a lot of interest lately. Well, we actually gave the film its first premiere here, the first airing in Ireland, right here in the studio in Carrowcrory. So we gave it its premiere, not the official premiere. I think they were actually a bit pissed off we got in first, but never mind. The Woodland League Forest in a Box scheme was inspired by that Call of the Forest film. And Andrewson Ledger is actually in the section of that film. I'll bring that up again. That's it, Call of the Forest. Andrewson Ledger is actually in that film as they talk about native forestry and even the foundation of Brehon laws in Ireland as well. Sorry, I'm lost on something. Everything has been going so well so far this time. Now the tech is starting to get me. Anyway, the Forest in a Box is a project that's used by schools. And there they are. They've got the Forest in a Box there. And used by community groups to learn about trees and how to grow them. And this starts with a wooden box with huge sides. Look at those sides. And And the reason for that, it's like in nature that other trees are protecting from the wind. And the participants are usually school children. They collect up forest floor material. That's what they're doing. They put some forest floor material in the box. And I wanted to do the tree planting. One of the mistakes people do is it's very good you mulch your trees the moment you've actually planted them, but don't do big mounds. If you do the big mounds of mulch, you're going to rot the thing. But just be like a forest floor. Even when you're doing the tree planting yourself, always try to re-establish that forest floor feel. And that does mean mulching if the leaves in the young days, because you're not going to have other trees around bringing the leaves down. So that's what they're doing there. They're impersonating that in the box. So the children, they then collect seeds from local native woodlands. I don't have a picture. Oh, there's a box there. There's another one they're working there. So they get, there you go. They've got a mixture of, those plants have come up from a mixture of seeds that they've got from the woodlands around them. Oak's popular, as we've been saying, hazel, alder beech, and sycamore. Also, you can put some hawthorn, maybe rowan, and crabapple. It's lovely to have some of the crabapple because the sauce from crabapple, and we talked about elder, if you mix the two together, makes lovely jelly for the winter. But these seeds, they're mixed with the forest floor material that I showed you earlier. And let's put it up. There you go. Where's the forest floor? There you go. Mix it with the forest floor material. Place a lid over it with mesh, and that prevents the animals eating the seedlings, especially pine martens. They'd love to get in there and eat all your seeds. If they got in there, that's quite a meal. They'd love that. So you've got to prevent that. So eventually, you've got all those plants, little plants like here, and they get planted out into the newly found woodlands. And that'll be the main feature next Sunday when I talk about tree sanctuaries. And these cultured plants, they can be used to replace dead trees in existing woodlands and provide coverage where there's blank areas. Now, the box sides, as I say, they're great shelter to imitate woodlands. Cost of forest in a box is €500, but that it's not only for the materials. You get a Woodland League teacher to actually come and help you assemble it, just like he's doing here. No, he's not doing it there, is he? Let's try and get there he is. There's Andrew St. Ledger, help them set it up there. So you get the assembly, you get a Woodland League person, and you get ongoing consultancy to make sure your box is successful. And if you're not living in an island, maybe there's something you could introduce like that and form some sort of cooperative with others to get that scheme similar to that amongst children and amongst adults in your country. Now, there's various fundraising ideas you can do to buy a forest in a box, because €500, oh, £500, $500. Just send me a message. I'll give you some ideas of how to raise funds for your community. So you got your forest in a box going. And it's not only getting those plants up, it's that whole community involvement. You become all little trees yourself amongst the trees. Beautiful thing to do. So message me about that. No more comments at the moment from you. But it's time, I think, to bring on our next guest, which is Jerry Dorton here. If I can, there we go, Jerry Dorton. And there's time, I think, to actually change my, even though that's in New Zealand, that tree in the lake, that's, I forget what it is. I've been there. Well, of course I took the photograph. Wanaka in the South Island. So there we go. So we're going to have Jerry. Let's bring something on. I'm going to surround myself with a red oak there while we bring Jerry on. Very active in the storytelling circuit, and during 2012, when Edward Durand started the poetry walks, I started the Bards in the Woods because Ireland was trying to sell off all its public forestry, and Jerry ended up using Edward's name in East Anglia because there was even the UK government were trying to sell off the private woods there. And I told you the story about Turoran last week. Fantastic story. But the poetry walks are actually still happening. So I'm going to bring Jerry on. I'm going to get my headphones back on. He's been patiently waiting the whole afternoon and waiting for his turn. but certainly this is going to be wonderful. There we go. This should get you on. Hello there, Jerry. Good afternoon. Lovely to see you again.
And you, mate, and you.
And you've as we were talking, you're kicking off on poetry walks next Sunday. Is that right? The next season.
Sunday a week. Once the clock goes on that extra hour, we sort of get out of our pits, and and get our poetry out again. So.
Wonderful. Yeah. So a couple of tree poems for us today. What have you got for us?
Well, I've got a sort of got three little ones. There's sort of a longish one. There's one is my pet likes. Is we've got 2 weeks left now, just over 2 weeks of the tree planting season here as well. We finish on the 31st of March, and so about 8 years ago we were after completing 240,000 trees after 4 years.
Wow.
Because as you know, we only do it in November till into March every year, so it goes to show how many volunteers we had. Yes. A lady died and left about 300 acres, to the Woodlands Trust. So fantastic.
Wonderful.
So on the last day, I remember putting in the last of the sapling that day, and walking back to my car for about a mile to get back to the car. And I look around and I just said to myself, grow strong and live long. And by the time I got to the car, I had this poem, and I called it Grow Strong and Live Long. So this is about my pet, because I love to hear of trees getting planted. And the wonderful guy there a couple of minutes ago doing this thing in the middle of Ireland, that's something marvellous, that is. And next time I'm home, I'm going to go have a look around there as well. But anyway, this is called Grow Strong and Live Long. Grow strong and live long, young babes of new wood. Be the lungs of this planet, from whence I once stood. Though I be a spirit, when you were crowned be a hood. Grow strong, live long, young babes of new wood. Grow hazels, grow ye willow, go, bear catkins galore. For young oak to be mighty, your boughs they must soar. Then acorns for your babes will descend to the floor. Fine roots their anchor for renaissance once more. Grow strong and live long, young babes of new wood. Bear the fruit for all those who have misunderstood. For your future be uncertain, till all mankind are good. Grow strong and live long, young babes of new wood. Come green man, come ye fairy, come from far distant shore, and regale the young babes with your tales and folklore. Of Cernunnos, the horned one, will leap to the fore, should Ilwell or Perra ever lurk at your door. So that's my first one. That's for planting trees. And
brilliant, perfect.
And there's one then, of course, my pet hate is those people that chuck things around in ancient woods. I'm a warden of an ancient wood, and back in 2008, got together with the local radio station here in Suffolk Radio, a guy called Mark Murphy. And he started what we call Don't Be a Tosser campaign to stop people chucking things in woods and on the side of roads and all that. Well, on the first morning of this, we were in the ancient wood in Springwood where I was a warden and getting everything ready. And his producer came over. He says, I hear you do a little bit of poetry. Now, at that time, I don't think I'd written 2 poems in my life. But the word gets around, and I said, I had dabbled a bit. But he says, would you be able to get a poem for us? I says, you mean we're coming back again next year? No, he says, 10:30, after the 10:30 news, about a half hour. I didn't even have a pen, I had nothing to write down, but I got something going in my head. And I called it Where Litter Lies. I walked into an ancient wood, it was just the other day. My heart was filled with wonder at the beauty on display. In awe of the catkin hazel, the birch and the willow tree, my eyes danced all around, my heart was filled with glee. I saw the wood anemones and the bluebells bursting through. Little birds were singing, and I recognized a few. The magic and the wonder of this wood I'd found, till I saw piles of litter scattered on the ground. The magic of the moment has suddenly disappeared, with a heap of dirty litter waiting to be cleared. Let's rid our woods of tossers and unplug the litter bugs. Make those caught tossing litter spend 4 weeks in the jug. Where litter lies, beauty dies. Yes, beauty dies where litter lies. So that's one of my pet hates is people chucking things. It's amazing how they can bring a 6-pack or a 12-pack into a wood.
Oh, it's awful. Going into the woodlands and seeing that.
Carry it in heavy, they drink it, and they can't carry the goddamn light ones back.
I know. Yes.
Anyways, that's sound about that. Now, I see over in your part of the country, and especially over here, this fracking is coming to the fore again. And that's
it isn't. I don't think it is yet. I put something out about that because years ago when I had a minibus and taken the tour around, I took some geologists around and they didn't reveal what they were doing until the end. And they were over here to look at Ireland with potential for fracking. But the one thing they told me was fracking would not be financially viable in Ireland until the oil went over $200 a barrel. And of course, with the shortage now, we're still a long way from that, but it's creeping up. So I'm kind of getting a little scared that they say once it's over 200 a barrel, but right now the investors are getting a bigger return from wind turbines than they would from fracking. So at the moment, the money people are in the wind turbines. But anyways, carry on saying what you were saying about the fracking.
I've seen 2 beautiful woodlands destroyed by the fracking. That is the thing about it. So a couple of years ago, I thought, well, I'm going to write something about it, and so I wrote. This is called Feckin' Fracklers. So I hope there's nobody going to be annoyed by these mild expletives. But Feckin' Fracklers who fractures nature's rocks, for they cause many earthquakes, tremors, and aftershocks. But chemicals and toxins Earth Mother's womb they distort. With hideous hydraulic pressure, her bounty they abort. The air we breathe gets polluted from interference underground, for the greed of Yankee dollars, the euro and the pound. With their monstrous iron rigs they blot our scenic lakes, while spineless and gutless governments try to suppress their mistakes. Nowhere is safe from their grim deeds, but when the bullies arrive en masse and destroy our ancient landscapes to extract Earth's precious gas. Mountains, valleys, rivers are raped to satisfy their lust, and then their feeble promises somehow turn to dust. Even our homes are not immune from their probing drills, for they will burrow deep below to enlarge their monetary tills. To our forests, woods and glades they intend to bore, and in their wake they leave behind the heinous eyesore. Now we see those that care, they that protest to protect our rights, are rounded up one by multi-natalaki shites. Then they are dragged before a judge who has alleged links of fracking scum to suffer the ignominy of a verdict that leaves us shocked and numb. So much for our so-called democracy, so much for the right to protest, when the odds are stacked against us, when the facts are unduly dressed. But the anti-fracking fraternity must not let up on their cause to deliver a greener and safer planet and heal years of humans' flaws. In our communities we must stand and show them we object. Together we must raise our voice and tell them to get fecked. Just stay away from Earth Mother's womb, for she is getting weak, and soon the loss of her precious source will make her look a freak. But when we say, be on your way, we don't want you here, on deaf ears our pleas do fall, for they show no signs of fear. They take no heed and carry on, for they can do as they will, then slink away some sad, sad day, leaving Mother Earth to foot the bill. Well, thank you, John, for allowing me to do that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we don't often get a bit of protesting on the the show here, but anyway, it was well done. It was done with taste, and someone, Anne was saying, Jerry, your voice and words are causing me to smile inside. That's before you started the fracking poem, of course. I rush out and plant some more trees and shrubs right now, except that the ground is completely frozen and snow covering here in the eastern USA. Anyway, that was the effect you had, but Penny Stevenson is brilliant and even makes a fracking comment because she doesn't live that far away from you anyway. I can understand how to allow fracking and how our government thinks it's a good idea. It's plain greed. It's where it's down to where's the best returns from the dividends. There's a lot to do it. And thanks very much, and we'll invite you back again, Jerry. Always wonderful to have you on board the show. All the best to you with your tree activity, and may fracking never come near you. Thank you. That was Jerry. Jerry Donlan, Bards Aloud, absolutely fabulous. And hope you don't mind. I say I have to see this every week, but we're really going into excess here. Very important subject, I feel. And I did mention with all the amazing Trees for Life in Scotland. So I'd like to say a couple of words about them because they've been around for 25 years, been operating. They've been rewilding huge parts of the Scottish Highlands. Their work includes planting native trees and improving habitats to increase wildlife. And this is what's going to be happening with the Gaelic Woodland project. And we'll see that down the road. It's going to be fantastic. But the main project of Trees for Life has been the rewilding of the Caledonian forest. And that one stretched from Ullapool, the beautiful Ullapool, right up there in southern and north of Scotland, way down to the famous Loch Lomond. And you cannot go and plant your trees with them, but you can donate. You can volunteer on the various projects. It's not just tree planting, it's wildlife care as well, putting bat boxes up, all that type of stuff. And you can go on rewilding apprenticeships with them. As Trees for Life, they're based in Findhorn, separate from Findhorn. It just happens that's where their enterprise headquarters is in Morayshire. And so here's a link. Let's give you a link for Trees for Life. You can look at the website and it explains everything there. I should have a linky here. No, I wanted to talk about Native Woodlands Trust. There's so much. We'll have a guest from Native Woodlands Trust in a couple of weeks, hopefully. But there you go, treesforlife.org.uk. Go to that website, read what they're doing, and absolutely wonderful work. And their work has brought up the percentage of native woodland up by at least 2 or 3% already in Scotland. I think Scotland's up to 17, 18% of actual native woodland now. And so a great success story there, which I hope is going to be repeated in Ireland very, very soon. The enthusiasm over there is going to make that happen, make it happen here. It really is. People are devoting so much land in Ireland to regenerating back to the temperate forest like Owen was talking about. Anyway, I'd like to talk more about them if I could, but I think I better start concluding. As I mentioned, it's possible with your support, Patreon. It helps me to expand on this. There's still trying to cover my costs on this to bring this forward. Some people don't like the PayPal link with the Patreon, so I've also do buy me a coffee. You can use your card with buy me a coffee, just a wee euro, dollar or two into buy me a coffee. I won't spend it on coffee, I'll spend it on the show, but that's buy me a coffee. Nature Folklore as well as the Patreon there. So thank you that. It's just small donations. It's all of you do that. It really helps a lot. Anyway, coming up, we're still in the tree season on the 20th of, that's next week, 20th of March, which is Equinox Day. It's on the 20th this year is the central point. The point of equinox is on the afternoon of 20th of March. And I'm trying to find pictures of that. Where's the pictures? They haven't come up. I can show you some pictures. Let's see if I can get them back up again. I know what it was. I was fuffing around and I forgot to get the last pictures up. So I'm just going to get some pictures up of what we've got coming up in the up and coming. Let's see, Trees for Life. We got that up. Let's bring this up. Just bring a few more things up, and then I just want to get some more pictures. Just give me a thing. There we go. There we go. We got in 2 weeks' time where that hasn't come up anyway. Never mind. Imagine that. We got tree sanctuary. I've showed you tree sanctuary pictures. Anyway, the tree. We're going to be reminding of why we need a tree sanctuary, how to have one of your own, and the amazing visionary life that we can have by living as a creator of our own one. And then we'll complete this tree series on the 27th. Lovely picture here, trees and water. And this brings the series away from the practical suggestions of these last couple of weeks and next week. And we'll go right back into the realm of folklore with the trees and the water, which gives the reason and the passion and just rounds the whole thing up. And then on the 3rd of April, we start a new series. It's actually our biodiversity and permaculture series. And part 1 on the 3rd of April is going to be on food sovereignty. It's part 1 of a 3-part series on biodiversity and on permaculture. And around Ireland, people are itching at the moment. They're itching to just get out there and do the gardens. They want to sow, they want to plant. But obviously people with polytunnels and greenhouses and clutches, they're seeding and growing right now. They'll be well underway with that. But some people want to get their outdoor potatoes going. It's always a bit too cold in Ireland for that. The soil doesn't really get warm until April. So this idea of putting potatoes in St. Patrick's Day might not be the best idea. Leave it a week or two. Leave it until well after the equinox anyway. But the first part of this 3-part edition, I'm going to consider what we can do to enhance our own food sovereignty. And this certainly is a major thought this week, isn't it? With the other stuff that's going on. And so we'll be going into combining sustainable actions and balanced planning. And there's going to be some spirit of folklore, of course, to guide and drive this along. So that's what's coming up. Let's see if you've got anything else to say in your comments here. Are you around? I've kind of lost you in your comments. So let's get your comments back. Right. No, there doesn't seem to be always inspiring. Thank you, Jerry. Jari. There we go. Thank you very much, Little Wing, and superb. So any questions anyone would like to ask? Because thank you. We had amazing guests, didn't we? Sinead kicked off, Sinead McClure. Then we had Grace Wells, who talked about Home Tree and shared a lovely poem with us. Absolutely fascinating on Connaughton and the Gaelic Woodland Project. And then we finished off with a wonderful, lovely regular poet from Poetry Walks in East Anglia, Jerry Donnellan. If you're watching this after the broadcast, keep commenting, even though you're watching the archive, and keep the comments going. I do check them up, and I return time to time to see what you're saying. You can subscribe using the bell to tell you what's coming up. And there's subscribe buttons and bell buttons, and it just keeps you in the flow. And thank you for being in the flow. So I don't think you're saying anything else at the moment. Absolutely. It's been a pleasure bringing this to you this week. So if I can just bring up 1 or 2 things here. No, is there anything else? All right. Yeah. Okay. I think that's about it. What's this? I got this up for some reason. How? Anyway, that's a tree sanctuary anyway. We'll be talking about that next week. So enjoy a wonderful week, safe week, full of wonder, inspirations. We've nearly been on for 2 hours, haven't we? And but here you go towards your inspirations, enchantments amongst the trees. Thank you for being with me. Until next Sunday, play well, be among the trees, enjoy we got some good weather coming up. So thank you very much. That's what I got. Oh, someone's saying something. Thanks a lot, John, from Anne. Sinead, great show. Inspiring program. Thanks for having me, says Sinead. Always a pleasure. I love those videos. So that's it for me, by the looks of it. Thank you, everyone. So it's bye for me. Bye-bye. We'll see you next week with tree labyrinths, tree sanctuaries. And, well, that's the end of it. There you go. Let's see if I can get you up. No, there we go. Right, what's happened? Something's gone wrong here. End broadcast. There we go.